In a far village, somewhere in West Africa, there lay Zambuka. A village asleep beneath a blanket of stars. Its thatched roofs and mud huts resting like dark, silent beasts in the night. Wooden fences, worn by the harmattan winds, guarded quiet compounds where goats and chickens dreamed. A man snored somewhere in the distance. A cow chewed lazily. Palm fronds whispered secrets to the dark. From time to time, a lonely lantern flickered inside a hut, perhaps an elder keeping vigil, its glow resting on a face carved with the memories of ancestors. The smell of warm earth, wood smoke, faded ankara. And the village waited for morning. At the heart of Zambuka lived an old woman. Aya. Not her birth name, no. A title. Grandmother. In truth, many had forgotten what she had once been called. Aya was memory itself. Time had bent her back, but sharpened her mind. She carried secrets like sacred fire. And she knew one thing many tried to deny. Blood remembers. Long ago, she had loved a man named Zunko. Their union lasted years before the spirits blessed them with twins, Abesai and Nanandi.
They look so peaceful.
They do, our perfect little ones.
But joy never stays too long without testing the heart. Zunko died. And Aya endured. She swallowed her grief, buried her tears, and worked her hands to bone so her children would never know hunger. Years passed. Now she was in her late 80s. Her son, Abesai, had grown into a man shaped by history, stern, proud, and fiercely protective of his lineage. But tragedy had not finished with the family. Nanandi died from a snake bite. Her husband followed soon after, taken by nature. They left behind a daughter, Nia, sharp-eyed, strong-willed, a young woman who refused to become small in a world that kept pressing in on her. She saw what others missed. She asked the questions others feared. Abesai too had a child, a son, Kofi, a brave hunter, yet a heavy soul. He longed for peace, but destiny seemed to call him toward storms. From childhood, Kofi and Nia were never apart. If someone saw Kofi alone, they would say, he must be going to meet Nia. If they saw Nia, Kofi cannot be far. By firelight in the evenings, they laughed about Anansi, the demon beast which elders used to frighten children. They spoke of trickster tigers, of ancestors, of glory. And without noticing, their love grew. Day by day, year by year. Morning crept in. The sun stretched golden fingers across the land. Acacia branches swayed like they were waking from deep sleep. A new day had begun. Aya was already awake. By the time Abesai stepped outside, she had lit the fire and sat beside it, warming herself against the harmattan chill. Age had not stolen her will to work. Abesai joined her quietly. Then, as if planned by invisible hands, two doors opened at once. Kofi, Nia. They came together, greeted their elders, and walked past, fingers intertwined. Aya's eyes widened. Abesai only shook his head. As they moved, Nia followed Kofi from task to task, copying every motion. It had always been this way. Since they were children. He taught. She learned. Together.
I think I've got it now.
You're a natural.
Let's go home.
Yes, let's.
Now Kofi was nearly 28. Nia, 2 years younger. And still, no boundaries. Fear tightened around Aya's heart. Let it never become what I fear, she whispered. Abesai turned to her gently. What fear, mother? But Aya did not answer. She only watched. And in her silence, lived a warning. Kofi. 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 Aya's voice rang across the village, stretched to its loudest, most urgent pitch. Immediately, Kofi left Nia behind to join her, where she sat with Abesai. The fire had long since died, but the ashes still glowed faintly as they chatted about old days. Before Kofi could reach her, Aya's voice rang again. How many times have I told you not to follow your sister into the kitchen? But Aya, I'm only trying to. Trying to what? She cut in sharply. Abesai, quietly observing and smiling, finally said, Kofi, have a seat. It was their nature to quarrel over the smallest things. Sometimes Aya would use her walking stick to correct them when she could not reach them. But mostly, it was Kofi, and the bond between them only grew stronger through it. Kofi sat, and for several minutes, no one spoke. They just sat there, as if trying to resolve a family conflict. Meanwhile, Nia continued preparing breakfast in the kitchen. After almost 15 minutes, Aya broke the silence. Do you know your friends are already at the village square chatting? She asked. Others are helping their wives, and here you are, clinging to your sister like a fly on dung. Don't you realize that, as the only male child, you are supposed to be married by now? Abesai was taken aback. It was the first time Aya had mentioned Kofi's marriage. He suddenly realized that the siblings' closeness might complicate their futures. But he could not sense Aya's deepest worry. The thought of discussing it with Kofi had never crossed his mind until now. Despite not fully understanding her concern, Abesai knew one thing: boundaries needed to be drawn. At that moment, Nia walked into the shade. The sun's glare softened against her slender frame. She carried a basket, a calabash filled with fragrant puffs of fufu and rich stew. Her wrapper swished gently against her ankles, ankara prints dancing with each step. She settled into the shade, the calabash steady in her hands, ready to serve her family. As they ate, Aya continued her lessons, emphasizing the need for boundaries. At first, the siblings tried to follow her advice. But the harder they tried, the more they found reasons to stay close. Kofi loved hunting. Though he was a farmer's son, farming never captured his heart. Abesai tried to stop him, but every effort failed. Nia joined him from childhood. Hunting became their secret world, a hobby that bound them closer than ever. Often, Aya would keep Nia indoors, waiting for Kofi to leave. But Kofi would wait by the roadside, knowing Nia would find a way to him. Sometimes, they would sneak out before anyone noticed. And every time, their hunting trip succeeded, providing enough for the family. Aya's worry, however, was not the love they shared. No, her deepest fear was what might come of it. She knew the traditions better than anyone. What if her fear became reality? How could she walk freely through the village if the consequences were terrible? Sometimes, tears ran down her cheeks as she watched them, two children growing into something she could not fully embrace. A blessing, yes, but also a fear that shook her heart more with each passing day.